let's go ahead and get started. So, hi everyone. I'm Kate Wilkerson with Community America, and welcome to day 3 of the Life Skills series. We're going to be talking about budgeting and saving, kind of as it relates to college students and being in college with a smaller or kind of irregular income. So, I'm joined today by Jamal Evans from Community America and Love Patel from KU Student Money Management. And so if you guys would like to introduce yourselves, Jamal, we can start with you.
Hi, everyone. How are you? My name is Jamal, and I am the branch manager at our Shawnee location in Kansas. I've been with Community America for almost 11 years now. One of my favorite things about working with Community America or for Community America is helping our members. I love helping members find the financial freedom that they seek, getting them to the right products, and just interacting with them on a daily basis. Financial literacy is dear to me, and I've done quite a bit of these life series skills, and I just love sharing my knowledge with everyone out there.
Great. Thank you for joining us. I'm excited to kind of pick your brain. And Love, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Love Patel. I am a senior at the University of Kansas, majoring in finance with a minor in business analytics. I am also a senior peer educator at the Office of Student Money Management Services. I've been working with them for 2 years now. And over the course of the 2 years, I think our office has roughly helped about almost 700 to 1,000 students with their budget. So I'm really excited to be joining this webinar today and just sharing some of my knowledge.
Yeah, it's great that we have like an expert from KU talking to KU students. So we're really happy to have you. So I want to just thank everyone again for joining us live today. And then we're going to be using the Q&A feature. If you have questions, pop them in there and we'll kind of come back to that towards the end. So I want to start with Jamal, and I want to just begin by asking you simply what the benefits of building a budget are. I think we always hear that term, you need to have a budget, but if you could just really simply tell us what the benefit is to having and keeping a budget.
Okay, so the benefit of a budget, it is to keep you financially on track. It helps you save money. So building a savings account is very important at any age. So by creating a budget for yourself and identifying the areas where you spend more money will actually help you cut back on spending so much money in those areas. You will then slowly build a savings account, which is great. Everyone needs a savings account especially for emergency purposes. So if something were to happen and you needed, $500 because your car died and you needed to get it fixed, you can go into that savings account and borrow that money without having to use a credit card or borrow money from, family or friends. So by creating a budget, like I said, it helps you save and it will put you in a better financial situation in the long run.
Well, when you say it like that, it makes it seem like a no-brainer to build a budget and to kind of push things back to your savings too. So Love, from a student's perspective, can you talk about how to make the most out of a smaller budget? Because especially when Jamal talks about savings, most college students don't have a huge income each month to budget out.
Right. Well, first of all, exactly, like most college students don't have like a sizable income where it's like going to be a big budget. But in our office, we generally just keep it as a budget. So when you come into our office, we first focus on income, which is the most important part of any budget. And then your expenses, you're going to break them down into variable expenses, which is like monthly gas cost or anything. And then you have your fixed costs, which is rent and stuff like that. So it's just making smart decision and prioritizing your needs and wants, which is like a big thing that we try to educate students on. And once you have that difference made, you can make the most out of your income and still end up saving money every month, even though you're making, let's say, about $500 a month.
Okay, great. Thank you. So when you're using an irregular income or having an irregular income, like you mentioned, what would be 3 things to keep in mind when you are creating that budget if it is irregular month to month?
Well, the biggest thing to like keep in mind is just knowing like what you want to prioritize, right? Because your first priority is going to be your rent and all your other expenses that you're basically accounting for. Then would be to see like how much money you want to save every month. So generally a good savings account could be anywhere from like $50 putting that into your savings account a month. And then another one would be just keeping track of your budget, just going back to it always and just like making sure like you have money in your budget and just like accounting it for at the end of the month.
Awesome. Jamal, do you have any insight on that? The top 3 things for an irregular income?
Yeah, so obviously tracking your expenses is very important. So one advice I would give is to, subtract your expenses from your income. So after you get paid, look at all your expenses. And there's a tracking tool that we use here that we give members like Community America, and it kind of breaks down what would you pay each month: cell phone bill, rent, utilities, anything along those lines, and you can subtract that from your total income when you're paid, and you'll see how much you can actually save by putting it back in your savings account. The rule of thumb is 10%, but being a college student, hours are different. You're not guaranteed full hours sometimes at your employer, so you have to make the best out of the situation and still try to save some money back and put yourself on an allowance so you don't actually overspend.
Right. Well, you guys have mentioned savings quite a bit, so I kind of want to shift gears and talk about the importance of savings. So, Love, does KU Student Money Management have like a specific goal for students to save back, or like how much should we as students have in savings? Because I know that number can look different than somebody that is out of college.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, I mean, as Jamal said, like 10%, pretty good number. When we generally budget for students, we try to keep it in such an order that it's not like an amount to per se, but it's like how many months of savings you have. So when COVID and everything started, we got a lot of questions about budgeting and just like savings. So the biggest thing to keep in mind is that we suggest you have 3 to 6 months of savings built up into a savings account or just have it somewhere. That is always a good number. And I think that is pretty much like a reasonable amount of savings that everyone suggests.
Great. So 3 to 6 months would be pretty much ideal.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. And then Jamal, how does that change when you do have that steadier stream of income after school? How do we revisit our budgets once we do have a steadier income?
So it's great advice to actually look at your budget with any life changes. So if you have, if your income decreases or increases, you need to go ahead and reevaluate your situation. So if you graduate college and you get a job and you look at your budget, look at your overall expenses, and see how much money you can actually, put away into your savings account. Because when you're in college, you live on a minimal income most times. You're trying to, not live above your means. So once you do get that job and have a steady flow of income, I would suggest relooking at that budget, seeing if you can put more back into your savings account, looking at retirement accounts, all that good stuff. So you would definitely want to increase your savings at that point. And if you have a life change and it decreases, then you would want to go ahead and match what happened and go ahead and decrease that savings as much as possible, and then deposit more as time goes on, as your income increases again.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Love, does KU Student Money Management have the resources to kind of help students through that process as well when there is a life change or a budget change?
Yeah. So the good thing with KU Student Money Management Services is like our services are open to all KU students, faculty, and alumni as well. So technically, even after you graduate, you can keep coming back to our office and we will keep helping you. We have an Excel sheet. So when you come in initially, we have everything in all your information, income, expenses, and everything. And when that changes, we always keep our records up to date. So we can always be there whenever your income goes up or whenever you have any other changes.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible. So you kind of have a record of people as they come in and out of your office, and you're able to kind of go back and see their track record with you all.
Yep.
Well, we do have a couple questions coming into the chat. So I want to start out by talking about the thing we talked about at trivia night, which was the number one mistake students made was spending too much on money. So what tips do you have to help students stop spending money on the small stuff like food or coffee because it does add up?
Well, for one tip that I would give is if you are going to be the person going out and spending money on food constantly, I always personally meal prep is good. If you're going to go to the grocery store, compare the grocery stores in your area, see who has the best deals or the best sales going on, and then go to those stores and buy that food item and prepare it ahead of time. So when you leave home, you have food in your bag that you're going to toss a sandwich or a meal or whatever, take it along with you. Look for restaurants that offers deals. I mean, in Chipotle, Chick-fil-A, they all have rewards. Starbucks. Starbucks is a big culprit for a lot of students. It can get pretty pricey going to Starbucks every day. So if you can buy a coffee maker and make your coffee at home, that will save you a lot of money in the long run as well. Because one cup of coffee can run about $5. You can go ahead and buy a container of coffee for $5-10 and still have coffee for like a month or so. So that's one thing I would recommend is just evaluating and looking for deals before you go out there and spend money, especially on food.
Yeah, I definitely need the coffee maker suggestion. I needed to hear that.
And to add on that, so like for KU students especially, so we have had that problem with a lot of KU students like spending a lot of money. And when COVID hit, like a lot of them were out of jobs, and like some of them had problems like buying groceries and stuff like that. So a good resource on campus is called Campus Cupboard, which basically offers like free groceries and stuff to KU students. So anytime that students have like a real crunch of money and they are not able to like buy groceries, they can always go to the campus hub, which is in the campus union, and use their services as well. And there's a lot of food banks around Lawrence as well. So if anyone is like in bad crunch of money, there's always a solution for that.
That's incredible. I, for one, did not know about that resource. And I think there's so many things on KU's campus that, people just aren't always aware of. So thank you for sharing. Another one of the questions we had come in are what are typical categories for a budget? So how might you group different expenses and how do you, maintain different spending habits within, your personal expenses?
I can take this. So we offer two different types of budgets. The first budget that we have is a proactive budget, which is basically your income and your expenses, and you build a budget before the start of the month so you can lay out all your expenses and you know how much you're going to spend in each category of expense. Another type of budget that we have is reactive budget, which is basically your income, but you don't know like the cost of certain expenses. So you're basically budgeting towards the end of the month. So you're basically keeping all your receipts or just keeping track of all your expenses and then just categorizing them at the end of the month. Now, personally, when it comes to me and budgeting, I like to keep a mix of both proactive and reactive because I know for certain that I'm going to spend this much money on like rent or like utilities and stuff like that. But there's some expenses that just come up during the month and you have no idea how much to like just expense, like just have money for that. So a combination of proactive and reactive budget is always a good strategy. And that's what we suggest like for most of the students that come into our office for a budget.
So you mentioned something about when to dip into your savings. So how can you evaluate what is important enough to use that emergency savings for? What kind of an expense would that look like?
Right. So that would look like anywhere like an expense like rent or groceries or stuff like that, like a need, not like necessarily a want. Like let's say new pair of sneakers come out and you're like, oh, I really want to buy that. I mean, if you have a lot of savings and if you feel like that's something you really want, then okay, yeah. But like for someone who's just like a college student saving money on every month, I don't think that's a feasible expense. Like to get a new pair of sneakers from your savings account, you can like save money for that separately, but not necessarily take out money and spend it. So like something like groceries that you really need, and let's say if you're like in a bit of crunch for money, you can always like dig into your savings for that.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So Jamal, I want to ask you what a common mistake is, or what mistake should be avoided when you're creating a budget, and what you kind of see.
So when creating a budget, I would always recommend or suggest you track your expenses first, like sit down, get a notepad, write everything down. What do I have coming out? What do I pay each month? Rent, utilities, groceries, that stuff. Then figure out if there's any budget leaks. And surprisingly, if you track your account online or on your app, and Community America's website is great with that because you can categorize the expenses that you pay each month. You can look and see, oh, I spent so much money eating out. I didn't even realize that all those eating out and buying coffee actually does add up. So, and people don't think about it that often. They go to the store or to a restaurant and grab a slice of pizza that's like $3, grab a cup of coffee, $5. And in your mind, it's $3, $5 is not a big deal. But when you calculate those expenses at the end of the month and see how much you're actually spending on eating out as opposed to actually going to the grocery store, then you will see that you need to cut back and start like buying your groceries and preparing your meals at home. That will save you a ton of money. That is one of the biggest budget leaks that I see. And then when people go out on the weekends, they want to go to a bar, they want to go to a restaurant. You don't have to do that every weekend. You can always cut back, stay home, relax, especially with COVID right now. So I would, recommend just staying in, watching a movie, buying a frozen pizza, popping in the oven. That will save you money instead of going out every weekend.
Yeah, I'm sure that's definitely been a shift for some people's budgets. And then for our last question, to keep track of your expenses, do you recommend using an app or your own spreadsheet or writing it down? What's the best way? And both of you, I'd love to hear from both of you on this one.
So me personally, I use a check register and I use my app as well. So I know what my expenses are each month. They're automatically paid. So I know each month my car payment is going to come out. My insurance is going to come out. My cell phone bill is going to come out. So I budget for all of those stuff already. And then any other expenses that I have, I usually always look at my account, make sure that, hey, do I have enough money to go ahead and purchase this? Because one rule of thumb is I will never use a credit card to buy something that I want. And if it's a need, and if I don't have sufficient money in my checking account, then yeah, I might use my credit card. But you don't want to use a credit card to buy something that you don't necessarily need. A lot of young kids make that mistake going away to college, getting credit cards, and then maxing them out, and then stating, oh, the minimum payment is $15, $20, $30. I can afford that. But in the long run, you're paying more. So stick to a budget, save your money. In the case of an emergency, you can always go to that emergency savings account and borrow that money and pay yourself back in time.
Yeah, so I agree with Jamal. I personally use an Excel sheet, and then I like to print it out at times, but then at times I just keep it on my desktop and then always go back to it. There's a lot of apps out there which are pretty helpful. I know Mint, for one, is pretty famous and pretty big, and it's like a free app that a lot of students can have access to, which is a great app for budgeting. I guess the biggest thing to keep in mind is whether you write it down or whether you have an app, just being honest with yourself and just if you don't have the money, just don't spend it, right? Don't look for reasons to bust your budget, right? Keep it intact, and yeah, just stay true to that, I guess, would be the biggest point.
Yeah, I think that's great that you said just to be honest with yourself, because it's so easy when we're maintaining our own budgets to kind of pick and choose what we see and what we don't. So I just want to say thank you guys both for joining us today on our third day of life skills. And to everyone tuning in, make sure you join us again tomorrow, and we're going to discuss confidence and success. And then remember to watch all 4 sessions this week so that you can get your free LinkedIn headshot and your Starbucks gift card for $10. So you can save money in your budget and add that in there. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Jamal and Love.
Thanks.